This summer, fall in love with DC all over again. District Bridge's summer bucket list is back. Think frozen cocktails at local bars, splashy pool days, museum adventures, fun challenges that support small business and spark everyday joy. Top players could win up to $250 in gift cards and prizes from the places that make DC feel like home. The party is running through August 15th. Sign up for free at districtbridges.org/DC Summer Bucket List. Today on CityCast DC, there's something so uniquely empowering about just taking yourself out on a solo date. Just because you're flying solo does not mean you can't enjoy a great night out. In fact, I think DC is full of perfect spots for sipping solo, whether you're in the mood for a craft cocktail or a sober-friendly mocktail. We're ordering another round of the conversation I had with CityCast's Ash Durbin and Priyanka Tilde about the city's best spots to drink alone. Today's Tuesday, July 8th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Priyanka, Ash, I have had a week. I am looking for a place to drink. Let's talk drinking.
Yes.
Are the both of you the types of folks who would go out to a bar like solo, just lone wolf style, by yourself to a bar?
Honestly, I love doing that.
Interesting.
I feel like it's an act of self-care to
poison your body.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's an act of self-care to feel like I am doing this thing that normally you only do with other people, only with friends, but I think my own company is worthy of celebrating in that way.
Totally. I have done some solo drinks in my life, but not a lot in DC. It's been more like if I was traveling by myself and you want to meet some people when you're traveling, or that's just kind of more of the vibe. I have done it some in DC, but I think I haven't tapped into exactly what you're talking about, Priyanka, where it's like a self-care day to have a drink by yourself. What about you, Bridget?
I'm kind of like you, Priyanka. I do all manner of things by myself. I love my own company. I love a movie alone. I love a drink alone, as long as it's not sad. I love a bar alone. I love a dinner alone. I've never been the kind of person who, I don't know if you've seen that Sex and the City episode where, I think there's Samantha or Carrie, where they're anxious about eating alone, so they bring a book or they pretend like someone's going to meet them. Cannot relate. I think especially as a woman of a certain age, you sort of get used to being in solitude, also in enjoyment. So that definitely does not stop at bars.
100%. And actually, Ash, I love that you brought up travel, because the first time I ever went for a drink alone, it actually came out of a conversation I was having with a friend where we were talking about how when we both solo travel, we feel like we are out there, I don't know, talking to people, engaging with our surroundings in a way that we don't do in our hometown. And so we made a pact that this was early December or something. And we were by the end of the year, both of us are going to go on a solo date, go get a drink, do it on our own, and try to see DC the way that we see other cities when we travel. And I just loved it so much that I then started doing it pretty regularly.
Really? So when I travel, that is the thing, you're by yourself, you're in a new country or whatever, and you want to hang out with people. And so you go out and I think because you're in a different country, different place, you have this openness and it doesn't matter because you're going to be gone later. So you're kind of whatever, I'm just going to talk to whatever and just be myself. And then, if nobody likes me, and I'll never be here again. So whatever, which is different to being where you're from. And it's kind of you have your friends already and this and that and that. So there's less of an incentive to go out by yourself. But do you think DC is a good city for just going out to a bar by yourself? And do you think the people that live here are open to that generally, or maybe is that less of a DC thing?
Oh, I totally think so.
Say more.
I think that DC is the kind of city where people have a lot on their plates often. And I think that whether it's career, school, extracurriculars, whatever. And I think that because of that, it's the kind of city where people are probably more likely to be busy. And so it's oh, can you hang out on Saturday? You cannot? Well, I'm still going to go. I think that's a lot more accepted in DC than other places I've lived.
And baggage to dump on strangers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I also think it's a city of people who are generally socially competent. So when you're striking up conversation with the random other people at the bar, it's likely to be interesting. This is a city of people who are interesting, have led interesting lives, and are able to talk about them.
Totally.
Well, that's something that I'm glad that you bring up, because I think that when you talk about doing things alone, it's easy to jump to the idea of solitude, but oftentimes when you go out to a bar alone, that doesn't mean you're just sitting by yourself reading a book. It certainly could be, and that could be a perfect way to spend an evening, but you could be striking up conversations with strangers. Fun fact, I met my partner, both of us going alone to Red Derby, our neighborhood bar, by ourselves, and like striking up a conversation randomly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one
So
of my
you're the true
favorite
expert.
stories of yours, Bridget. True inspiration. I tell myself that every time I go to get a drink by myself. I'm like, am I going to meet my man?
You might. Shout out to Cobra, the bartender at Derby, who like facilitated our conversation.
Wow.
That's so cute. What do you look for when you're thinking about like a good spot for a solo drink? Like, what are your criteria?
Well, this comes back to the question of like, are you going to have some solo time, or are you going to like meet people? If I'm going to meet people, I kind of like there to be something going on at the bar that helps with conversation. Maybe there's like a game on TV, or maybe, you know, there's some sort of sporting event, or maybe even like a Showtime. I've been at Showtime during the day sometimes when it's less popping and it's like actually like the movie's on, and like that's what people are doing, or like watching a movie or whatever. And I think that like as a conversation starter, if that's what you want to do, or if you're just going to be a solo and like, you know, don't know what to do with your hands while you're just hanging out by yourself, like it's good to have. So something where there's like board games or sports games or a movie on in the background, that can be like a good place to start.
I was just going to suggest Showtime because their movie situation is legit. Shout out to Maria at Showtime. But yeah, having something that you can sort of focus your energy on. Jackie Lee's often has something interesting on the television that people are actually able to watch and engage with. The flip side of that I opposite of look for in bars to go alone, I know I have said that in a roundabout way, really loud music. Something about going to a spot with really loud music, it just is not a good place to be alone. You're just sitting there thinking like, wow, I don't know. It just gets me in my head. Totally the wrong atmosphere for a solo bar date.
100%. Also, places that are too dark or moody. Like, if I'm by myself, I want to either be talking to people, reading a book, or people watching. And if it's too dark, you can't really do any of those. Like, it's really hard to strike up a conversation with a stranger in darkness.
Totally.
I mean, I really like the darkness. That's like going to be the title of my memoir. But I think it depends on the mood. I think that I actually am like, it depends on my mood. If I'm going for like a brooding kind of like, I'm here to nurse a drink and feel my feelings and think my thoughts, I could be okay with a dark, vibey, maybe not a speakeasy, that might be, but I was going to suggest like a Bar Charlie, kind of a little bit more of a moody, atmospheric situation. Depending on my mood, I could see that.
That's fair, yeah, because Bar Charlie is like, I guess, theoretically dark in terms of literal lighting, but it's a very social spot.
Correct, yeah. But that does bring me to something I think is important to talk about. You know, if you're the kind of person who is finding yourself going to bars alone because you, like many people during the pandemic, maybe your drinking has taken on a little bit of a problem situation, that is sort of not what we're talking about. And we just want to encourage folks, if that's kind of the vibe, if you're like, it actually isn't seeming like a thing I'm doing to be social or a thing I'm doing because I'm in the mood. It's actually kind of becoming a little bit of an issue for me. Encourage folks to talk to someone, because that is not what we're talking about. And we don't want to make light of that because it's a very real situation.
Totally.
Yeah, good disclaimer.
If you're a CityCast superfan, then you probably know that we've teamed up with a new platform called Backroom to help keep our conversations going outside of the podcast, and maybe even turn them into real solutions. We knew CityCast listeners cared about this city, but your response really proved it. The pilot packed out, but Backroom has opened a few more spots just for you. Backroom brings people together in focused discussion rooms to talk through local issues, exchange ideas, and work toward shared takeaways. It uses AI to support the conversation, not by steering it or adding content, but by helping participants express themselves clearly and cutting through the noise that so often gets in the way of progress. Then, based entirely on the ideas and arguments shared in the room, Backroom proposes a clear, actionable solution that reflects the group's collective thinking. So if you've ever wanted to go deeper after a CityCast DC episode, this is the place to do it. Help shape solutions for your block, your neighborhood, your city. Head to the link in the show notes to join the pilot or hop on the waitlist. Spots are limited, so sign up now to be one of the first to test out Backroom. Backroom, a platform for problem solvers.
All right, suffice it to say, we are in some morally ambiguous times right now, rife with hot-button issues. So it makes sense that we'd need help sorting through sticky situations and moral dilemmas. Enter philosopher and New York Times ethics columnist Kwame Anthony Appiah. He'll be at the Library of Congress on July 24th for a live event, Ask the Ethicist, hosted by the library's John W. Kluge Center. Explore real-world moral dilemmas and cast your vote on what you would do. Then hear how one of today's most influential public philosophers thinks through the same questions. Thoughtful, engaging, and full of surprising moments, this interactive program allows you to reflect on everyday ethical questions in a way that's personal, relevant, and fun. That's Ask the Ethicist on July 24th at the Library of Congress. Get free tickets at loc.gov/live.
Other things I look for in a solo drinking spot is that I particularly really like drinking at the bar. Like, I don't like sitting at a seat by myself when I go drinking alone, because that just feels kind of awkward. And
Totally.
yeah, I feel like it like draws attention to the fact that there's no one sitting across from you in a weird way, whereas sitting at the bar is great. And so especially like a bar where it's in the corner and you can see most of the venue from there is really nice, because it's just great for people watching.
Totally. I think that's what the bar is for at the end of the day, is for the solo drinkers. And there's something really weird about sitting at like a two-person table by yourself, and it just forever looks like you're being stood up or something to everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would be curious for the server community and industry folks to weigh in. I actually think it's a bit, depending on the spot, it might be a bit rude to sit at a table and get table service if you're alone, because I feel like I'm one person that can only eat and drink so much. The server could be making,
double the tips,
a bigger percentage of tips if this was a table that had more people at it. I don't know if that's my own hang up. I'm very mindful of wanting to be like a good steward of the places I go to, but I'm curious if that's something that you all think about.
There's a realness to that. I think in my hospitality experience, if someone was by themselves, we'd be like, you sure you don't want to sit at the bar? But I don't think, unless the place is like packed out and it's super pressed for seats, like if you really want a table, one person, like it's fine. But I think that problem almost didn't even come up that much, because I think most people feel the way we do. And like, if you're by yourself, you kind of want to sit at the bar for the most part.
What problems did come up? Like when people come to drink alone, like you've worked as a bartender. Yeah. Are there things that you shouldn't do?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have to preface with like, I guess my vibe as a bartender was like slightly more of, not an asshole, I don't want to say that, but like slightly more abrasive. What I've put together from the solo drinkers that I encountered in my day, I think some things to not do are like go sit at the bar with the intent of being like, I'm going to talk the bartender's ear off all night. You could tell when some people did that. And I don't know, it's just kind of like treat them like someone next to you at the bar. You know what I mean? If you talk to someone next to you at the bar and they're like, you guys aren't vibing, then you're probably not going to keep talking. But there's sometimes a thing with the bartender where it's like, you'll just keep pulling them over, even if there's not some sort of chemistry, because it's their job to kind of talk to you a little bit. And sometimes I would be like, bro, we don't really have any, like, we don't have anything in common. Like, we don't have much to talk about. Also, I have like 5,000 drinks to make right now. So like talking is not ideal. I will say though, I was way more inclined to give a solo drinker that I liked, like a free drink, a free snack, a free shot, anything, if I ever messed something up or like made the wrong drink for someone and be like, oh, like I have this, like, do you, it's one person. You don't have to like please a whole group of people. It's just one person. It's easy to like, sneak them something extra. So if you can get on their good side, that's like a really good way to like get a little freebies here and there.
That's definitely happened to me.
Same.
I don't know that it did anything special to earn it, but maybe it was just like what you're just saying. It was just easier to please me because I was just there alone.
It's easier. In my experience, it's like a balance between like, oh, like I like this person's being chill and like treating me well. And then sometimes just like, oh, like they're by themselves. Like, let me give them something free.
It's a pity. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take a pity drink, whatever.
Well, Ash, how do you get on a bartender's good side or a server's good side when you're dining alone to get those maybe pity freebies?
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, just like treating the bartender like a person. If you get along, you get along. That's great. Honestly, I always liked when someone had a book at the bar. I think that's just like a general tip. Even if you're not going by yourself to read, even if you're going to be social, like having a book is like just a good conversation starter for like, you can pretend to read and then someone will be like, oh, what's your book, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like having a way to mind your own business, but also like implant social connections. Also, obviously tipping well, and like also just like knowing when they're working and like grinding and knowing when they're kind of chilling, I think is like a good skill. Like seeing when a service worker is like busting their ass for something, and maybe that's not the time that you like talk about your divorce with them. And then like when they're like cleaning glasses, maybe that's the time that you can, get some steam off. So it's just being like a normal social person. I think sometimes those cues get lost between like service worker and drinkers. But yeah, and then always tip well, man, especially if you're unloading your trauma. Leave a tip.
The book thing is a great tip, I think, because I wouldn't say I've made friends that way, but I've definitely struck up a lot of conversations. I had people strike up conversations with me because I had a book at a bar. There's actually a bar near me called Lucy that has a really nice like open window situation when the weather's nice.
Oh, the pizza place.
Yeah.
I love that place.
I love that place. And they've got great like Aperol spritzes and just a good wine menu. And there have been multiple times that I've gone there with a book and there's like 3 or 4 other women around my age also sitting at the bar, or better yet, at that window with their books. And we're just like, it feels like a little like reading club of female strangers. And it's great. So if you are a woman looking for a place to read your book at a bar, try Lucy. You'll find others like you.
Hey, when someone else's negligence changes your life forever, figuring out what to do next can feel overwhelming. You need lawyers who won't back down. The NACE Law Group has been winning serious injury and wrongful death cases in D.C. for decades. They don't just settle, they fight for real justice, and they're not afraid to take cases to court to get it. You might remember them as Paulson and Nace. It's the same trusted lawyers, just a new name. If you need someone in your corner, reach out to NACE Law Group for a free, no-obligation consultation. Visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com or call 202-463-1999. That's 202-463-1999.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
We've mentioned Lucy. We've mentioned Showtime. Are there any spots that we haven't mentioned that you all are like, this is the perfect solo bar spot in DC?
I know that this is potentially going to be controversial, but I love going for a drink at Boardroom by myself. It might seem weird to go to a board game bar by yourself, but I think it makes for great people watching. Like, people playing board games get weird. And it's just a very like low-key place. I feel like the vibe of that bar is very chill. So I just like nursing a Guinness and watching people be strange, and it's fun.
Yeah.
What about you, Ash?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of times it's like after work or something where you just want to like stop by and get like a quick beer. And like, I think some of the best solo drinks are just like on the way to something where you're meeting up with people, or like leaving something where you were just with people and just like kind of either a decompress before a social event or a decompress after, and just like have a beer and a shot and just kind of loosen up. So I feel like dive bars are great for that. Sometimes after work, I would hit a place called Last Call in Union Market, which I don't know, cheap and just like a lot of people hang out. I think definitely a good place to like chat with people. So yeah, I think Last Call would be my shout.
Yeah.
I love that spot. And to your point about solo bars, dive bars being a place to go before or after another social engagement, again, that's how I met my partner, stopping at Red Derby by myself before going to a borderline illegal street dance party to commemorate Prince.
Wow. What a story.
Like, just thinking like, oh, I'll stop here for a quick drink by myself. And then next thing you know. Well, so I love Last Call. I love Boardroom. But my favorite solo bar in the city, I got to go Lyman's for a very specific reason. So they have pinball machines, which is like great because that's an activity, as you were saying, that you can sort of engage in. So you're not just like sitting there. You can people watch the people playing pinball. They have a camera over one of the pinball machines so you can like watch people actually playing if you don't play yourself, which is great. Very specific reason why I say Lyman's is because if you've been to Lyman's and you've sat at the bar, you might know this. Their stools are embedded in the floor so you can't move them, and they are pretty far apart from the stool next to you. So if you go with friends and you sit at the bar, it's actually a bit awkward because there's a lot of room. Perfect for solo drinking, though. So the stool situation at Lyman's makes it very ideal for a solo bar spot, in my opinion.
Wow,
Totally.
that is so specific. I love that. I love that. And if you're ever looking for a fancy drink out alone, I gotta recommend Allegory. The bartenders there are just really like great to solo drinkers. And they have so many weird liquors and things to try there. And again, as a solo drinker, you might get to experience some extra little shots of things that you wouldn't get if you were in a group.
Totally. Wait, so what do you guys order when you're drinking by yourself? Like, is it like a beer situation or like, I feel like when I'm drinking by myself, I kind of want a slow sipper, like give me a Negroni or like a Boulevardier or something that will last and that's not just like going down quick like a beer or a margarita or something that you can like kind of nurse and like have through the night that you're chilling. What do you guys order?
I'm totally with you. I'm not normally having more than 2 drinks when I'm going out alone. So they're normally cocktails of the type that you just described, unless it's boardroom, in which case I get a draft beer because that's just the vibe of the place.
I also like something that you can savor so you can really savor the act of enjoying your own company.
I hope we've made a compelling case. I feel like people should try this.
Yeah.
If you have,
totally.
if you've never, and if it's like, safe, healthy mindset.
I think it's also just good, like on both sides. One, to have the time to yourself. Also, two, to like working the social muscle of being like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with people that I've never met in my life. You know, that's a brain muscle that you kind of have to work and like a fear that you have to get over. And I think both sides of solo drinking can be healthy in moderation, of course.
Yeah.
In moderation.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, there's like all that conversation about the pushback on dating apps and like how people are trying to meet IRL instead. And going for a solo drink is a good way to do it, as we know, because of Bridget's story.
That's right.
Take it from me, folks.
Yeah.
Take it from her.
Well, Ash, Priyanka, maybe we'll all go to the bar alone and make eye contact and give a respectful nod and then go back to our books. Maybe I'll see you at the bar.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah. Sounds great. See you there.
See you there.
Today, we've got a couple of shout outs from our CityCast DC neighbors. Taryn M. loves the delicious coffee and pastries at Casa Mia on 14th and Buchanan Northwest. Elisa G. wants to shout out Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, or PAVE DC, which empowers parents to advocate and hold policymakers accountable for equitable education in DC. And Ian L. is so kind, shouting out all the folks that bring CityCast to life each and every day. That is so nice. Thanks, Taryn, Elisa, and Ian. Want to share your favorite local business or nonprofit on the podcast? Just become a CityCast DC neighbor and send us your shout out. We'll read it right here. Join today at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, tell your favorite bartender next time you're out on a solo date. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.